The video released last week was dramatic. After packaging up some fentanyl taken from a suspect's vehicle, Deputy David Five Eye suddenly stiffens and falls back. Almost immediately, his training officer, Deputy Scott Crane, administers naloxone given to people who have OD'd on opioids.
Hey, dude. Wake up. Hey, buddy.
Military 91 pound 60.
Yes, code cover.
The blowback came within hours, medical professionals across the country saying what the video showed was not an example of overdosing on fentanyl, lashing out at the sheriff's department for releasing a video many said misportrayed a situation that plays out with deadly consequences across this country every day.
I think it's helpful to release the full version so that people can see as much as you can see from a body cam.
Dr. Carla Marienfeld is the medical director of UC San Diego's Addiction Recovery and Treatment Program. She has not seen the unedited version of the video yet. With what she has seen, she says she doesn't feel comfortable saying what happened to Deputy Five Eye was an overdose. Marienfeld says she's more concerned about the unintended message the video could send.
I think the most important message is that people shouldn't be afraid of incidental exposure to fentanyl in a limited way like this, to where they would not act to help someone who might be overdosing.
One thing that is new from the unedited version comes when Deputy Five Eye is answering questions from a paramedic.
Any medical history I need to know about?
Probably my 6th or 7th time I fall on my head.
That leads to an obvious question as to whether Deputy Five Eye has a history of fainting, and if that's what happened here. Dr. Marienfeld says, hard to tell.
I think that you want to take into consideration the fact that the patient may have had previous head injuries and whether or not some of what he was presenting with currently was related to him hitting his head in any way.
Then there's the question of a toxicology test. The sheriff's department now says one was not done at the hospital. Dr. Marienfeld says that's not unusual.
In the emergency room, you're trying to be as efficient as possible in helping somebody. In that situation where the story was consistent with a fentanyl exposure, it wouldn't necessarily make sense to check to see if there was fentanyl in his system, particularly if the story you heard as the physician was that the patient responded to naloxone.
We reached out to the sheriff's department for clarification, but in an email they said they weren't doing any interviews today, leaving this story kind of how it started, with way more questions than answers. John Carroll, KPBS News.